Hello everyone, and welcome to the now taped, hopefully just temporarily edition of the Just Two Marks Wrestling Recap Show. I am the Athletic Geek, and I have a very special guest today with me. I have JC of the Delixe Asterisk. He is been featured on the channel and on the Facebook page on past occasions, including tripped several live streams on the Facebook account doing commentary over various old independent wrestling shows, and also in the Nashville ROH show. So JC, welcome to the Just Two Marks show, and this is going to be a very interesting perspective today, as myself and Jedi Jason Kruger, and also myself and Nick, we both really watch the shows pretty thoroughly, or as thoroughly as we can, with life and everything. But
I haven't been watching as regularly recently.
Yeah.
So I kind of caught up on a couple things that happened in the past week.
But the thing that I find interesting about how James got kayfabe breaking motherfucker here, JC here, got caught up was in the past. How he got caught up on everything was how I had to watch wrestling. The network does not air Raw right after, does not put Raw on the network right after. I totally messed up how I was saying that, but also, before the network came around, 2012, 2013, I didn't have regular access to cable. There was no WWE network, but there would be segments, the important segments and clips of the important matches were placed on YouTube, so that would be how I would keep up with just wrestling in general. So I'd have my perspective on things, and then I would talk to Nick, and he'd be like, well, but that's not how it went down, and we'd have different perspectives because he would watch the full episode of Raw or the full episode of SmackDown, and I would just watch what the WWE had on their YouTube. So it's going to be interesting to hear his thoughts on what he saw based on what I saw, and see if there's really any difference in anything, really. So, also, for the new folks coming in, I almost broke my own cardinal rule. We are the Just Two Marks show. We are a different type of wrestling show on YouTube. We try to avoid using insider terms, even though I broke the fourth wall just a minute ago, bring one. We try to, when we do our commentaries on wrestling, not to use insider terms because we're not insiders. We aren't paid to do this. We aren't paid to talk about the wrestling business, and we're not in the wrestling business. We just have a distinct interest in fandom and love and respect for wrestling, and we enjoy talking about it. So while we're passionate and we enjoy the product, at the end of the day, we're not insiders, so we don't use those terms. We're really just two fans, just two marks. And that gets everybody caught up, and we're going to go right into Raw, and we have a Roman Reigns segment. Well, first of all, I'm going to give a quick thoughts on the Greatest Royal Rumble, just a little blurb. I thought it was a good show. It's not a great show. Bullet points, really. I thought AJ and Shinsuke had the best match, and I think that, it's amazing that Daniel Bryan can go 75 minutes in a Royal Rumble match after, at the beginning of the year, you didn't even think he was going to wrestle, much less go 75 minutes in a match like that. His chest was scarred up like it was from Roderick Strong, like it was 2006 again, and yeah. Overall, it was like a fun little show, everything else aside, but I compare it to the insurrections and the rebellions and things of that nature, to where you got a pretty stacked card there, but kind of at the end of the day, the status quo isn't changed whatsoever at the end of the show.
Wasn't there a tag title change, though?
Yeah, there might be one thing. I'll go back. Like an insurrection, maybe the hardcore title would change. Maybe the European title would change. Yeah. So you have something to where it's hey, this isn't just a random house show. But nothing really earth-shattering.
There wasn't like a debut or a world title change.
Yeah, nothing really earth-shattering happened. It's kind of like, okay, well, some fun stuff happened, and that's about it. So now we'll get into Raw. Not being live has me all messed up, I probably should be cleaner, but it's not. So here we go. Roman Reigns is a segment in his match at the Greatest Royal Rumble. They supposed to make it look like they spears him through the cage, and Brock Lesnar is supposed to get out first, but it's pretty obvious that that's not the case, so they work that into the storyline here. The referee even goes on Twitter to apologize, but they work in the storyline here, and Roman kind of does this interview in the ring, and what amazes me about everything is he's got a legitimate gripe, but people dislike him so much that they're booing him through legitimate gripes. And you just gotta wonder what's going on with that.
What can you really say? I'm going to be completely rip off someone else who is in the business. If I recall, in the past few weeks, I remember Raven, the wrestler Raven, on his podcast saying that maybe Roman Reigns was, quote, damaged goods. And it might be hard to argue with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like how much the people that watch the show have heard me say this a bunch of times. You've probably heard it 100 times more than what since the start of the show. When are they going to learn? Like, what is it like? Is it just going to be ignored and it's just going to be like, deal with it? I mean, really? Like, before it was just like, it was frustrating. Now it's like to what the fuck levels. What the actual fuck levels. So, I mean, I don't know. But eventually, Joe interrupts, kind of calls him a failure, which, I mean, not lying, I'm starting to think as being the top good guy in the company, that he is kind of a failure, But, it's just, how much longer is this going to last? And then, I know this is Canada, it's quote-unquote bizarro world, but you have Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, they get a pretty good reaction for coming out and challenging Roman Reigns, but at first it starts out with Jinder Mahal, who is still getting, booed, as the bad guy. Big brawl ensues, we got Bobby Lashley, and then, they can't quite handle it, but then the cavalry comes out.
One-man cavalry.
So, I remember you made a comment on...
I was just being a smartass when they were talking about when Jinder and the Singh brothers were attacking Roman. Someone said, quote, that they were mauling him, and I said that they were mahaling him.
Oh, I was talking about like against the Lashley quote,
Oh yeah. I
don't bring your puns in here. I do not want to hear your puns.
I had heard that Lashley had came back to WWE. I knew that obviously he had his stint in TNA, and I'd seen him there, but his look was relatively similar, aside from having a headband. But seeing him now, where he's wearing like the pants and the headband, it looks like he belongs in some kind of like either like 70s martial arts movie, or he's like a 80s breakdancer, or he belongs as like a selected fighter on an MK or a Street Fighter game.
And then also the apparently, fuck Bobby Lashley, the cavalry's
I know, like one giant muscular guy, like that's not gonna do it. We need the guy who won the greatest Royal Rumble ever.
Pretty much. So they do that. They have a subsequent match with Strowman, Roman, and Bobby versus 3 Canadians.
Yeah.
And of course, when you're in Montreal, you can't let the Canadians win.
Yeah.
That's not a pun on their hockey team either, the Montreal Canadiens. No. Strowman, Roman, and Bobby going over or winning. Bad me for breaking my own rule there. Yeah, it is what it is. I mean,
Wait, so they were in Canada and Jinder still didn't get cheered?
Yeah.
I mean, so they didn't sing his praises?
I'm gonna have to pause it. All right. Well, there's a little break in the editing there because JC ruined my life temporarily.
Oh, you mean me?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why there's a little break in the action here, folks. So if the editing looks chopping, that's why. Maybe it's a good thing that I don't have the right to go live because there would have maybe been a crime scene caught on tape.
Oh no, you might get...
Shut up! Anyway, Bobby Roode wrestled Elias.
I saw part of that.
Yeah.
And
there was no walking, my friend. Not walking out for Bobby Roode.
No. Apparently, they, due to an incident in the match, he was supposed to have hurt his larynx, and he was being attended to. And I couldn't help but just, because, it is what it is, and, you're looking at it and you're like, okay, this is probably, just storyline, for lack of a better term. Mm-hmm. But I remember I said to this one over here that Triple H is looking at this and thinking I remember when my larynx got hurt in friggin' Rob Van Dam, landed right on it, and it's just kind of do you think he coached Bobby, or do you think he just looked at him with his
But
yeah.
Bobby Roode just kind of not doing it for me since his call up to the main roster. But I mean, me and Nick and Jedi Jason and now JC, we're it doesn't matter who's sitting in the chair next to me. I'm still saying it's with these NXT call-ups, just not as good,
Well, also, you mentioned it too, and I think anyone can notice, or at least knowing a history of him and some of his matches there, it is in a way weird that Bobby Roode is still the good guy. Mm-hmm. And especially when you see, you saw him towards the end of NXT, when he was facing Drew McIntyre, mm-hmm. and he was essentially like Ric Flair 2.3.0,
right?
Because
2.0 is Triple H,
yeah. and I mentioned before, just kind of bluntly, and probably this has been said 500 times, that as weird as this is to say, you got to think that if he didn't have that music, he wouldn't be where he wouldn't. I don't know if he would be where he is, or he definitely wouldn't have the crowd reaction and be a good guy.
Yeah.
That's not me criticizing him as anything about him. I'm just calling how he's received.
Right.
And it just makes you wonder, though, what will make the difference? Would they actually pull the trigger and give him a different theme or a bad guy theme to turn him bad?
It makes you wonder. But yeah, they're going all in on Elias, it seems like. No pun intended on that respect. On that show that's be in Chicago, that hopefully myself and the rest of these guys will maybe be going to. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But it's just what they don't really, with anybody from NXT, with the exception, and I actually forgot to put this on my format, with the exception of what they're kind of doing with Ziggler and Drew McIntyre, with the great interviews that Drew McIntyre's been giving since he's gone there. They're not really going with what brought the folks from NXT, what brought them to the dance in NXT. They're not really doing, at least in the case of Rude, and you could even go the Revival even.
Well, maybe the one example, or maybe one exception, despite circumstance, would be, I guess, Balor. Mm-hmm. He succeeded, but things kind of got in the way.
Right.
But I mean, you could maybe even. I mean, I didn't see a ton of them, but I get you could almost maybe argue that at least partially with the revival because one got hurt and that kind of stalled them. But
well, you're kind of to steal a line from another internet wrestling radio show. Speaking of Finn Balor, he had a nice little segment with Seth Rollins where the former Mr. Raj came out with these glorious, no pun intended with our previous topic, T-shirts. And if those go on sale on WWEshop.com, I'm buying one. Like
I remember I did say on those T-shirts to bring up a very old, obscure reference. Those T-shirts were like one step above, in terms of quality, the Midian plus Acolytes equals Friends shirts. But that was, and I also brought up just kind of a weird, observational moment. If you had to describe that moment to somebody like 10, 15 years ago, and explain that you had, you don't even have to say Prince Devitt. You just have like, oh, there was this Irish guy that was a famous Japanese wrestler. And then there was this like indie darling that was like the only wrestler from Iowa, and they, and then they wrestled Mr. Perfect's kid and IRS's kid, and it's like,
yep,
sure that happened.
Yeah,
but
led to a pretty good match with Rollins and Balor again, like they've been having. I mean. To just have good matches together.
Oh yeah,
but I'm starting to kind of get a little bit, especially in that segment. Maybe, possibly, from a personal level, Balor going bad. I mean, he did kind of attack Rollins out of nowhere, and you kind of. I feel like maybe you're walking a little bit of a fine line with turning Balor bad, especially with the T-shirt and what. Balor is beginning to represent to, diversity in the WWE. But at the same time, it's kind of like, what if he's just better doing that? Like, character-wise. Not that you should...
For the sake of the storyline, yeah.
It's kind of... You just can't help but wonder, like... they're sure to point out that, this is a fictional world, but it's... Could there be a backlash?
Well, there is going to be.
Yeah, there is going to be this Sunday. There's going to be a backlash, yes. I'd like to think that there wouldn't be. That people would understand that Finn is just playing a role.
Yeah.
And that... Part of the role sometimes would be that sometimes he's good, sometimes he's the bad guy. In this particular instance, his role needs to be that of a bad guy. But I also see how, with everything going on, like you're kind of walking on some shaky ground now, and as much as I want to see bad guy Finn Balor, maybe now. Is just the wrong time.
And also, is it like in a way a weird kind of bizarro thing where you have Rollins being this good guy and Finn potentially being this bad guy. All things considered.
Well, with Rollins, especially with Rollins running the company so far,
and not to mention the fact the whole Rollins accidentally the things that happened.
That could be a good catalyst, but still, you could even use that you're the one that I was going to lead this brand, but you did this to me,
who wasn't going to be a champion like Brock Lesnar? Me. And then you ruined my shoulder.
Yeah.
Oh,
I thought you were going to make a
point.
My heart was beginning to sink a little bit.
I was literally
you have ruined me for the rest of this episode.
I was literally quoting what Seth said.
Yeah.
But, and speaking, I actually made a similar, observation. It's similar in a way when they had the women's match with Sasha and Ruby Riott. I said this. It is a weird, almost bizarro kind of thing because I mean, not that it's anything necessarily new with Sasha, because she's obviously been in the good girl character for it's not when was the last time she even was bad, like seriously, not like them flirting with it.
It was probably a little before the Royal Rumble 16.
But because a lot of my exposure to Ruby Riott or her previous incarnation as Heidi Lovelace was she was very she was a spunky good girl.
Yeah, and
then you have this weird bizarro thing where Sasha the boss is the good person fighting off the bad people of Ruby Riott and her company.
Riot Squad.
Yes.
But on the flip side of that, fantastic match between the two. The two ladies brought it, and they brought it big time for that match. It was
that was a rough. I remember when I saw Sasha do that, hop over the rope and kneed freaking Ruby's face into the post. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, but I mean, the two. I mean, that was the best match of Raw. I mean, not downplaying how good it was. It didn't really take. Balor and Rollins. I'd say probably even right there with Balor and Rollins is the best match on Raw. I mean, the two girls brought it, and the women of the WWE really brought it this week. So I mean, that's our little blow through Raw right there from judging what he's seen. Pretty much my thoughts too. Be back with SmackDown.